Hi everyone, welcome back. And today we'll be reading the story Anansi and the Lizard, a West African tale. All the young men had gathered in the village courtyard to hear the chief's pronouncement. Whoever guesses his daughter's name will have her hand in marriage, inherit half of his riches, and become the next chief. No one outside the palace had ever heard the royal daughter's name, but in a stroke of luck, Anansi discovers what it is. Chief Anansi, the spider says gleefully to himself. He likes the way that sounds. Lizard, however, may have plans of his own. But can Lizard outtrick a trickster as tricky as Anansi? Let's find out. At the spot where a dusty road meets a rocky one, Anansi the spider stopped to consider whether to head east or west when he saw a notice posted on the tree. Well, 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 what have we here? He said, shifting the little bundle that held everything he owned. Anansi scratched his chin. The chief's daughter. Someone will will her hand in marriage. Anansi chuckled to himself. If the chief had to hang up notices to find a husband for this daughter, she must surely be a scrawny little thing. Anansi read on. Whoever can guess her name, how hard could that be? Shall marry my daughter and win half my land and rule as chief. Anansi read that line twice. Then he scampered off to the west without bothering to read another word. Now, had Anansi read on, he would have seen the warning written on the bottom. He might have, but he didn't. And that is where the story begins. Anansi found the chief's village easily enough. Musicians were beating a gong that could be heard for miles. Girls and young men crowded the streets, laughing and calling out to one another. Anansi dodged the countless feet, moving steadily in one direction. When he came to a high stone wall, he scurried up to get a better view. Anansi had just seated in a comfortable spot on a mango tree next to the wall when the gong suddenly stopped. The chief will be heard, shouted a palace guard. Anansi found himself looking down into the courtyard of the village chief. 3 elegant women sat eyeing the crowd suspiciously. A line of boys waved large fans over their heads. The time has come for my daughter to marry, the chief began. Her name has never been spoken outside the palace, but whoever can guess her name will have proven himself worthy of marrying her and ruling half my kingdom. Excited whispers raced through the crowd as all eligible young men pushed their way to the front. But the chief continued, anyone who dares come forth with the wrong name will have his head chopped off and fed to the buzzards. The chief nodded to a guard holding a large shiny blade, then marched back into his palace. The crowd thinned out rapidly. Anansi dropped his sack to the ground and scrambled down from the tree. Do you mind? Said a lanky grasshopper. Around here, we don't just drop things without looking first. One day, Anansi boasted, you will tell your grandchildren that you were the first in your village to meet Chief Anansi. I might even invite you to the wedding. Anansi winked at the grasshopper. Why, I may even find a place for you at the palace. Really? Grasshopper grinned shyly. I think I would like to live at the palace. Yes, well, Anansi reached for his sack. I need a place to stay. Tomorrow will be a big day. Grasshopper hugged Anansi's bundle tightly. Please, friend, come have dinner at my humble home. I insist that you spend the night and allow me to prepare a feast for you in the morning. Please? Anansi smiled. He let Grasshopper carry his sack and lead the way. His stomach growled, but Anansi knew it was nothing that a meal couldn't fix. The dinner had only left Anansi more hungry. Some meal, he mumbled. Crumbs, scraps, twigs. The minute Grasshopper dozed off, Anansi hurried back to the palace wall. A juicy mango would do what Grasshopper's dinner had not. Just as he reached for a nice ripe fruit, he heard voices and looked down. "No one will come forward," one girl said. "Only someone brave enough to risk his life," another teased. "Or wise enough to learn your name," said the third. "You'll see. Your father's taste is clever, Ahwafe," added the fourth. And Nancy could not believe his luck. It was the chief's daughter talking with her servants. At the moment, an Ahwafe turned, and Anansi, stunned by her beauty, nearly fell from his perch. "Ahwafe," he whispered softly and repeated her name over and over as he scurried back to Grasshopper's house. Grasshopper was asleep in a chair. Anansi slipped past his host and hopped into the big bed that Grasshopper had insisted he take. "Chief Anansi," he whispered to himself. "That has such a nice sound." Anansi fell fast asleep. Anansi awoke to voices in the next room. True to his word, Grasshopper had called his friends over to celebrate. Cricket and Mouse, Beetle and Snake, and a dapper fellow named Lizard were digging into a breakfast feast. When the last crumb was eaten, Anansi hopped up onto the table. "I, Anansi the most wise, the most clever, I alone know the name of the chief's daughter." He spun a tale of a night so dark, and a wall so high, and his future bride so beautiful, and soon I will be so rich, he added with glee. "Now I must prepare to call on the chief." With a graceful leap from the table, Anansi strutted off to Grasshopper's bedroom. "Amazing," said Beetle. Cricket rubbed his legs together in agitation. The guests began to leave, thanking Grasshopper even as they sighed over Anansi's good fortune. But Lizard stayed behind. Anansi emerged from the bedroom. He was splendidly dressed in Grasshopper's finest clothes. "Anansi, my dear friend," Lizard began, trying his best not to hiss. "You aren't planning to see the chief unannounced. Someone of your importance should have a servant, a messenger at least, to announce your arrival. You can't walk in like a common villager." Anansi imagined it would be quite impressive if a messenger were to announce him. Lizard smiled. "But who to send? I need someone I can trust." Lizard's eyes gleamed. "I hope you won't think me too bold, Anansi, but I would be so honored to do this for you. Your gratitude would be all that I would ask." Of all that Lizard said, Anansi particularly liked the fact that he wouldn't have to pay him. "All right," Anansi said. "Go tell the chief that Anansi is coming to claim his daughter's hand." Lizard seemed overjoyed. He skittered for the door and then stopped. "Oh," he said, "you'd better tell me her name, otherwise I could lose my head." Anansi thought a moment. Then he whispered into Lizard's ear, "Her name is Ahwafe. Ahwafe the Beautiful. Tell the chief it was I, Anansi the Clever. No, say wise. No, make that brave. Anansi the Brave." Anansi looked up, but Lizard was gone. Looking neither to the right nor to the left, his messenger was hurrying toward the palace. Anansi and Grasshopper watched from the balcony as the palace guards listened to Lizard, then allowed him to pass. Anansi couldn't help but hum a little tune as he went inside to admire himself in the mirror yet again. "Good morning, Chief," he sang to his reflection. "Greetings, sir. It is a great honor, Chief. While he was practicing his bow, Anansi noticed Grasshopper watching him. Soon, my friend, Anansi chuckled. Soon. But what Lizard had actually said to the guard was, "Take me to the chief, my good man. I plan to marry his daughter." "Go right in," the guard replied. But what he was thinking was what a fine pair of sandals the lizard would make. The chief was startled when he saw a lizard approaching him, but he hid his surprise well. After all, a chief must be fair. "You've come to claim my daughter's hand?" he bellowed. Lizard nodded. "You know a wrong name will cost you your head." Lizard gulped and nodded again. He hoped Anansi knew what he was talking about. Turning to the executioner, the chief boomed, "Ready your sword." "Now," he demanded of Lizard, "what is my daughter's name?" Lizard stuttered nervously. "Aho, aho, ahoa." "What?" barked the chief. A bubbling pot of lizard stew came to his mind, tasty, with cassava and a dash of coconut. "Ahoa fe," Lizard stammered. The wives gasped. The guards gulped. The executioner sighed. The chief sank back into his throne. Sadly, he had to admit Lizard was right, and he sent for his daughter. "Awafe," said the chief, "here is your husband." Lizard bowed deeply. Awafe shuddered. "Here are your crown and your clothes," announced the chief. "After you marry my daughter, half of the kingdom shall be yours." There was a sudden flurry of activity. Tailors set to sewing, servants swept every corner, and cooks rushed to the market in search of exotic foods. Oil lamps were lit in the courtyard for a feast that would last through the night. Anansi heard the gong gong announcing the marriage. Quickly, he smoothed the folds of his robe and checked his reflection again. But the sound of Grasshopper's friends chattering drew him away from the mirror. "We hear Lizard is marrying the chief's daughter," Cricket was telling Grasshopper. "What nonsense," Anansi snorted. "Lizard went to the palace as my messenger. I, Anansi, will be marrying the chief's daughter." Anansi drew himself to full height. "Follow me to the palace." Trailed by the grasshopper and his friends, Anansi headed for the palace. He was surprised that the crowd of festive villagers took no notice of him. Anansi was growing worried. "The chief will never find me in this crowd," he called out. Just then the gates to the palace opened. Anansi stared in disbelief. In the center of the procession, amid heaps of golden ornaments, sat Lizard with Ahoafe by his side. A crown rested on his scaly head. "He wouldn't dare!" Anansi gasped. "That snake!" "What's that?" Snake hissed. Anansi looked very appetizing now that he wasn't going to be chief. But Anansi was already off to Grasshopper's house, muttering and sputtering as he went. Snake could barely keep up, but Grasshopper leaped ahead of them all, taking care to stay out of Anansi's path. They all reached Grasshopper's house just in time to see Anansi bundling the last scrap of cloth into his sack. "Tell your friend, Lizard, he'd better watch out," Anansi fumed. "I swear by the great oath of the Ashanti that I will tear him limb from limb if I ever see him again. I should have known he couldn't be trusted. Those beady eyes. Why, I ought to." "Could you leave my robe, please?" Grasshopper asked, trying not to grin. Anansi flung the robe at Grasshopper. "Be sure to warn your friend," Anansi exploded. "Tell him I will find him." Scolding at everyone in the room, Anansi spun around and left. And so they say, Any lizard worth its tail can tell the story of what happened in that little village on that wedding day to that lucky lizard. As long as Anansi doesn't see him first, that is. So if you look there, hiding in the corner, or there scurrying along the wall, doesn't that lizard seem a bit nervous? Well, now you know why a lizard stretches its neck back and forth, this way and that. Because long ago, someone did warn lizard. Well, the trickster got tricked. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Please like, share, and subscribe for more awesome stories. Thank you.